Small introduction to the clip you are about to listen to. It's about 40 minutes long, so I encourage you to listen to it in its entirety. It's part 2 of my conversation with my coach, Coach Robb, who does blood evaluation, does sport-specific training to triathlon, to motocross. He's helped me out quite a bit. He does nutrition. He's got a whole nutrition line as well as CompleteRacingSolutions.com. And this is about a natural PED program when it comes to sleep, and we use some tools with the Garmin dashboard to use better analytics. So let's deep dive into this conversation.
Strong, well, don't be undermined by heat. It's the same thing with the motor. We don't want to, and you made a comment earlier, like trying to draw a parallel to motors. If you and I go and buy a factory edition bike and it's brand spanking new and we go out to Lakewood and we ride it in second gear and we do a 40-minute moto and we never shift out of second gear, even with all the elevation, and we come in and we let it rest for 30 minutes and we go out and we do another, and we do 4 30-minute motos, but we only rode it in second gear, you've got an hour 10, an hour 20 minutes on the motor. How excessively stressed is that system beyond the scope of what the hour meter says? And we all know that. We've had bikes that, unfortunately, we had 25, 30 hours on it. We ended up having a week-long mud race. What did we do when we got back from that mud race? We sold the bike. Why? Because it's excessively stressed, every component of that bike, because elevation, mud, heat, prematurely, wears a mechanical device down. But then when we put it in the human realm, we go, oh, well, the law of physics, the law of physiology, the law of nutrition doesn't matter. Suck it up, buttercup, be tough, all the stuff that starts to come down the line until you get exposed to heat exhaustion. Remember when Sexton went 1 DNS at WW? That's heat exhaustion. That's not fitness. When you look at the idea that people are exposing themselves to heat, and maybe in their day job, then they're cross-training in the heat during the week and then trying to race in it on the weekends, getting very frustrated as to why. You and I were looking at your biofeedback indicators. We knew you were sick before you had the symptoms of becoming sick. That's why the Garmin dashboard is so helpful, because I get this all the time.
Here, let's get into that.
And Johnny, you and I talked about this. When you wake up in the morning, we created a dashboard for you there in the top left-hand corner when we look at sleep evaluation. This is something that we do as part of our consultation benefits.
Which has been incredibly helpful from Complete.
Well, what I want for the end user is you guys have you only have so much time, right? So this is a consolidation report that we create, and it's literally titled sleep evaluation. So just for the sake of the listeners, Johnny, you started seeing your resting heart rate was going up, body battery was going down, sleep quality was going down, but you look good in the mirror. Well, it's just kind of like looking at a motor that's got 150 hours on it, but I keep putting new plastics and graphics. That new BNG does not supersede how tired the motor is.
Yeah, this was my recovery week, after being sick in that little race. So everything was good.
Now, what we can do, Johnny, is
yeah, dude, when I was sick, it was much higher.
Go to the 1 year in the top right, and this will be a little better illustration. So you can see the spike right there. Okay. And that is not normal. In fact, go back to 4 weeks be a little bit easier, a little bit less. So when you look at that race date of July the 11th, and then you look at that.
Was it July 16th was my race? Sorry, here. Oh.
No, that's okay. If you start looking at the 11th and 12th, that's when you start to see the number go up.
Was my race.
Yes, but if you go to the week before, when you started feeling bad, before you had the external symptoms, go down to reports all the way at the bottom. Go down to the last blue icon, reports, health and fitness, and then resting heart rate. Up 3. There you go. And then go to 4-week display in the top right. So the race was on the 16th, but look at the week before. Now look at the week before that. See how you were below a 45 all day, every day?
Yeah.
And this is where we want the listeners to pay attention. Remember, when you wake up today, depending on when you watch this video, when you wake up tomorrow morning, you have to evaluate how your body responded to yesterday and the day before that and the week before that. Look at that pattern. Go to the left 5. See how low, what was your low right there on the 8th? You were down all the way to a 43, a 40, and then go 4 days later where it peaks right there. Now you're at a 47. So for the people that are watching,
yeah, I was feeling
today,
awful.
Yeah, but here's the key. What if you weren't feeling bad? Go back to 2. Go back right there. So 5 days ago, your resting heart rate was a 40. Now on July 11th, it's a 47. This needs to be a wake-up call for people that you go, hey, what would be the catalyst for that? I didn't do a hard race yesterday. Why am I up 7 beats over 5 days ago? Now go to the body battery. Stay right where you're at. Just go. There you go. And it'll stay on a 4-week default. So second variable we'd look at is look at June the 11th or July 11th, excuse me. Look how low your body battery got down to. Next one, go the next one over. On the 12th, go next one over. Go to the bottom. Look at how much you plummeted all the way down to a 24.
Yeah, 9.
All the way down to a 9. Okay. Now,
and I wasn't doing anything.
And that's what I was going to say. And that's with doing nothing. This is when the virus has got full hold of you. Okay. Now, please, for the sake of the people who are watching this, this was the Monday and Tuesday before the race. Mm-hmm. So when we were having the conversation, you said, hey, I'm not feeling all that good. I log into your dashboard and I see your body battery's at an all-time low. Go to the top of that. You started your day at what? Go just to the top of that specific day. Go up. Just keep going up. What'd you start your day at right there? Keep going up to the top of the day. You
67.
Started your day at 67. Well, is a body battery of a 67 good? It is if it's normally a 50, but look to the week before it. Look how many days you hit 100%. See the anomaly that we're trying to find? Because you're calling me saying, I'm starting to not feel very good. Well, no disrespect. I don't care how you feel as much as I care about what the numbers say. Now, please, for the people who are watching this, don't take that as an insult. You can feel good and your numbers can be shit. Just like your bike could have BNG all over it, and maybe you just faced it up with new rims and new engine casings, but the internals are smoked.
Yeah, and then
just because it looks good.
Day of my race, I started at a 70, and then I went to a 5.
Now, just so everybody knows, the lowest number Garmin will ever give you is a 5. Go to July the 15th and look at what number it gave you. You were at the absolute lowest of lows that Garmin will give you. It'll never go below a 5 on this dashboard on body battery. So truly, you were at the lowest you could have possibly been. Now, if you put this back into context, you and I spoke on Tuesday of that week. We looked at this. You had the lowest body battery in the morning. At the end of the day, you had the lowest body battery of the month. That's why I was encouraging you to not do the race. You go through the race and then look at where your body ended up the 2 days afterwards.
Yeah. And then that's what prompted me to be taking the entire week off of doing stuff.
But that's what needs to be said is you're looking at your body battery hitting 100. How did you do that? Because you stopped training and you let all of your energy go to recovery. So go to July the 17th. This is the day after the race. What it bounced back to. So you went from a 5. What'd you bounce up to?
A 75. Which is pretty much higher than how I was.
Yeah, but this is Johnny Hopper who hits 100 almost every day, as evident by the screen. Look to the left. So now when you wake up the next day and you've only picked up 70 points, and just so I'm where I'm getting the number from, the next day you started at a 75, but you ended the day before at a 5. So all you're evaluating is how many points did you pick up during sleep? Because the points that you accumulate are a byproduct of your food and your sleep quality from the day before. So we're looking at the next morning's number by looking in the rear view mirror of what you did and what did you do to recover. What you did was you raced. How you recovered from it is dictated by food and sleep. You only picked up 70 points. It took us 2 full days to get back to 100. Go to the 18th. You finally got back to where you're at 100. But what did we not do for that whole week? Training.
I didn't do shit. I really focused on going to bed.
Recovery.
I was in bed by 9. I was pretty much asleep by 10. And then, I was waking up at 6, 7. So I was making sure I was trying to get as close to 8 hours of sleep. Like this last week, I've gotten better sleep than I've gotten in the last couple months.
And that's because you made it a priority. Now, if we stay consistent with what we just talked about, go to the 18th. So you start at 100, right? Now, what was your depletion rate? You only went down to a 51. Now, that's just, and this is really important for the listeners. You burnt 49 points just getting through a day with your emphasis on trying to stay, focused on recovery. And you still burnt 49 points. That's the cost of living. Stop and think about that. For those of you that follow me on Coach Robb podcast, what are the 4 quadrants of life? Personal, professional, financial, and athletic. So if you took the 1 quadrant, athletics, completely out, you said you didn't do shit. The other 3 elements, thinking about finances, your job, and your family, it cost you 49 points, Johnny. That was just to get through the day. That's where we start to look, because, hey, my job is, I'm a physiologist. I want to see people get lean, get strong, and get fast. But I can't do it at the expense of I refuse to do it at the expense of your health and wellness. That's why we always look at these in baseline numbers before we start plowing into testing and training and racing. I've got to see some kind of baseline. Where are you at? I've got a gentleman, I won't say his name. His average body battery, Johnny, you're going to die when you hear this. His average body battery for the last 18 months has been a 53. That's his average high. Okay. He owns his own business. He works 18, 19 hours a day. He's got a young family. He's got a very successful business. He's got a very successful family, happily married. And he's faster than you can ever imagine on 2 wheels. Can you imagine if I got him to 78 or 80 or even 90? He's winning with an average body battery at 53. What would he be at 73, 83, 93? And by the way, he's working on it hard. He has a lot of responsibilities. He's a 3rd generation family owner. It's a very successful business. He knows the importance of sleep, but you guys know how it is. It's easy to talk about it. The real world settles in. Johnny, you've got a little girl. When she's sick, what are you going to do? Lock the door and say, cry at my door? I've got to get my beauty sleep? No. You and Paige take care of your daughter, Go to...
Because, my sleep scores were awful for...
Yeah.
While I was...
Let's look at a different variable. Go down, go to the left. Yeah, go to duration. This will be more important. And I want you to go just below, go to where 47 is at, down below. Yeah. So everybody that's looking at the screen here, what Johnny is looking at is this is his sleep duration, and these are what we call sleep ratios. I want you guys to become absolute geniuses with these 2 numbers. The first variable, average deep, Johnny's at 47. Now look in the top right-hand corner. That's his 4-week average. So Johnny, click on 7, and I want the viewers to stay looking at that bottom number. So right now it says 47 for average deep. Click on 7 days. See how it's bumped up to 56? I want to make sure people are looking at the numbers accurately.
Well, and don't you only really recover in deep sleep? Like this is the most important sleep. Where you release human growth hormone and testosterone is in,
that's right.
In deep.
Anybody who's taking notes during this webinar or this show together, this is what we call sleep ratios. So Johnny, move your mouse. So if you look at the first number, he's got a 56 there. That number needs to be closer to 2 hours of deep sleep. Now go to the next, go 4 over, go to 27. We want that down at go 1 over. We want that to be less than 15 minutes. So what are we looking at? How much time you spend in deep sleep against awake. And then the final number to the right, we want that to be closer to 8 hours. So Johnny's killing it. I've got athletes that are getting 4.5 to 5 on average. So step back. Don't get overwhelmed. You guys know compression and rebound. You know sag settings. You can learn this. Your number one goal, if you look from right to left, is to be at 8 hours. You want to try to get the minimal amount of awake time, ideally less than 15. That gives you permission to go to the restroom and come back right to sleep. And you want your deep sleep to be over as close to 2 hours as possible because of what Johnny just said.
Which I've never gotten that. Never got. I need to buy a new bed or something.
Well, and you may say that in jest, but you don't realize how difficult that is. An old bed, even when you travel, Johnny, and I want all the listeners to do the same thing.
My wife gets over an hour of deep because she's on all the Garmin stuff too, and I get so upset that I'm like, man, look at how much she's damn near getting more testosterone than I am.
Well, and I wanted to say this, and obviously, Johnny, I don't want this to come across inappropriately.
I am not that sensitive.
But look how lean Paige is. Look at how, she's very muscular and she's healthy. I mean, she's doing rotations at med school. She's killing it, right? And that's because when she gets out of bed, she's rested. If you follow her on Instagram, she's posting. She makes great food. You guys cook at home. You use raw, real food. You guys aren't obsessive compulsive about it.
Yeah, maybe
it's
cookies.
Just a priority.
A little bit too many cookies.
Yeah, but Costco cookies on race day are a staple for the Johnny Hopper show. It's the only way. But
they are pretty good. They are pretty good.
They're very good. But I want you to eat cookies. I want you to have ice cream. I want you to have birthday cake because we're only living once.
I'm honestly, I've been losing weight, since even during the recovery. Like it's probably more water than anything, but now the last few days I've been under 150 pounds, which is unusual for me. Usually I'm around 152 to 155, and me being under 150, I'm like, what am I doing?
So let's look at this. And let me just finish this thought, and we'll go to a different graph about calories. What's so important here is what you said, Johnny, and anybody who's watching this, please write it down. Go back over to where the deep sleep is at 56 minutes. Okay? That needs to be closer to 2 hours, because when you're in deep sleep, if you study sleep at all, it's REM3, it's deep sleep. When you fall into deep sleep, your body releases HGH, human growth hormone. That's what essentially is imperative to make you lean. So this is why you hear me say on my public podcast all the time, you only get leaner when you sleep. And if you're not sleeping deeply and you're not sleeping for an enough period of time to allow that deep sleep cycle, you guys know it as circadian rhythm. If you don't get that deep sleep, you're never going to get leaner. You're never going to build new muscle. You're never going to recover from life. Screw athletics, life.
Well, how do you get more deep then, Coach?
Okay, so for those of you who have a piece of paper, write this down. You need the room to be below 69 degrees Fahrenheit, 22 degrees Celsius. You need to make sure
it's got to be that cold.
Yes, it's sleep studies validate 69 degrees and 22 degrees Celsius and below. The body goes into almost a hibernation mode, and it wants to focus on sleep.
All right, I'll try that, because I've been a cheap ass here in Arizona, and I've been keeping my bedroom at 77.
No, you drop that bad boy down. And the reason being is what happens is, and this is no disrespect to females, what happens when a woman gets hot? She's tossing and turning all night long, right? She's complaining that she's like on fire. What is that doing to your sleep quality? Men are not immune to that. And that's what I want people to get excited about. It is very, very simple. If you'll allow me to educate on what's going on physiologically, you have more confidence in why you're doing what you're doing. I don't want you to just do it because I said do it. Understand why you're doing it. That's why I appreciate doing these shows with you, Johnny. I want to answer the question, how do you improve deep sleep? If we know the benefits of deep sleep is the releasing of HGH, which makes you leaner, it's also going to produce testosterone, and most men get pushed around a lot because they say, oh, last thing my husband needs or my partner needs is more testosterone. He's already walking hard on it as it is.
I've got a lot of my friends that are on TRT, and back when I was racing right at the end, I wish I had the Garmin and the stuff while I was totally doping to see what was going on there, because I know I wasn't getting the best amount of sleep, but I was wondering if having those hormones pumped into me, if it would have made a considerable difference or not.
Well, on the subject of taking TRT, it's just an acronym for testosterone replacement treatment. The idea here is when you start to bring things in artificially, it's as if you're modding only part of the motorcycle. So if I put a 270 kit on my 250, but then I put an 85 chain on, no one's surprised if the chain breaks and that's what happens when you go on a PED program. Yes, the cardiac output, if you're on EPO or corticosteroids, testosterone, the cardiac output is going to go up, but now you start snapping tendons and ligaments. You start having other issues because the supporting staff can't keep up with it.
So it's instant gratification as opposed to for a long-term foundation gain, is what you're saying.
It's the understanding of it. It's the understanding. You knew taking EPO and taking testosterone and corticosteroids, you knew what it was going to do for you. But when you don't have the knowledge of what about the rest of the system, and go back to a
I did
factory
not.
edition bike that's been ridden in second gear wide open, it's only got an hour on the hour meter, but it's excessively stressed until it blows. Now go back, because I want to finish up here on this heart or the deep sleep numbers. How do you get the deep sleep? I'm sorry, let me finish up on testosterone. Most people think about testosterone only as a sex hormone. Testosterone is a precursor to red blood cell production. So for those of you that are working, you've got a family, you've only got so many hours in a week, do you see how ironic it is to me that I get more pushback on trying to encourage people to sleep when the dropping of body fat and the improvement of production of red blood cells only comes from sleep? So when you make a question or when you pose a question about how do I improve sleep, you are printing free money. Most people that are watching your show, Johnny, they're willing to do the work. I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about you're not taking recovery seriously enough and the lack of understanding why should I recover. Isn't that, sleep is when you die.
Well, and that's
pain
the
is
thing
weakness
is,
leaving the body.
I've been hearing more studies on stuff as far as if you want to live longer, you need to. I just finished a book on quantum physics, and they were talking about, I don't know why this stood out to me, but if you can average 8 hours a day through your life, you could almost add 10 years to your life. And people that are getting under 8 hours, they're actually aging themselves considerably. But we live in a world where it's like you get 5 hours of work, or 5 hours of sleep, that's how you're going to be successful, because you're going to be more productive over stuff. And this is all just very interesting, because it's sleeping as an adult is more of a discipline than anything.
But I think the problem is and we're not playing the victim card. Gosh knows we're not playing the victim card. It's the lack of knowledge. It's the proliferation of misinformation. It's people trying to make themselves look like heroes when they boast that they live on 5 hours of sleep. It's just like me boasting. You hire me as your factory mechanic, and I come up with this grandiose idea that I'm going to save weight on your bike by cutting the radiator fluid in half and cut your oil in your engine casings. And if I just yell at you enough and I call you enough names to try to convince you that I'm going to offset the principles of physics in the principles of mechanics, right? The engine casing needs a certain amount of oil to keep those gears from grenading. But don't worry about the law of that. Let me just convince you with words and intimidation and name calling that we're going to save weight by cutting the oil in half. Don't worry about running an oversized radiator. We'll run a smaller radiator. In fact, to save more weight, we'll cut the radiator fluid in half. You would fire me immediately. So when you got people out there saying to run on a calorically restricted diet, start cutting food groups out of your diet, even though you haven't been validated that you have sensitivities to it, it's completely illogical. It's completely bullshit. It's undermining the health of the people that are following your show. And then if you do enjoy riding and or like to race, isn't it amazing how much attention we'll put into motors and suspension, but we don't put it into food and sleep? That's why I always say people will step over $1 to pick up a penny. And I have no patience when somebody knows. That's why I appreciate this opportunity, is I just want people to understand the why, because the why will make people change the way that they design their 24 hours. But if you don't see the importance of it, right? So I want to answer your question about, if you understand deep sleep, REM3 is where your body releases HGH and testosterone.
Yeah,
that makes
so
you leaner.
You need to
red blood
sleep at
cells.
69 degrees or less.
Number one is 69 degrees Fahrenheit, 22 degrees Celsius. You need to go to bed satisfying hunger. The only macronutrients that satisfies hunger is protein and fat. So I know there's going to be people that will completely throw me under the bus. They'll cite all kinds of studies that say don't eat after 5 p.m. I call bullshit. And here's why. I was an athlete at the Olympic Training Center, Colorado Springs. I'm only regurgitating to you what the example was given to me by one of our cycling coaches, and that was take a 3-month-old baby, give them a bath, put them in clean clothes, put them in bed, and see how they're going to sleep through the night after you don't feed them at 5 p.m. And the joke that the German cycling coach said to me is, when did the rules change? So I want anyone who's listening to this, put yourself in the same position. You wouldn't go from 12 noon until 9 p.m. and not be willing to kill somebody because you're so hungry. You're hangry, right? Well, then what makes you think you can go from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m.? Your brain has to have a constant source of sugar from your liver.
Is that why you've been telling me to drink a protein shake before bed?
Or bed is to satisfy hunger
And I
to
haven't been
improve
doing
the
that.
quality of sleep. Now, again, thank you for saying that. Look at the dashboard that's on the screen right now. If we want to get deep sleep up to 2 hours, you can't supersede the fundamental needs. It's what we refer to in the physiology world as hierarchy of needs. The body's desire to satisfy hunger will always supersede the desire to go to bed. How do you know that? For anybody who's listening to this that's, smashed themselves into a diet and they tell you not to eat after 5 p.m., have you ever noticed that you toss and you turn and you stare at the ceiling fan all night long? Because you haven't satisfied the fundamental need of hunger. When in doubt, test it with a 3-month-old baby. So now think about this. The room is the room is cold. You've satisfied hunger only with protein and fat. So if you want to do a hard-boiled egg and a half an avocado with some extra virgin olive oil and some sea salt, that's because salt's the number one electrolyte we lose in sweat, you will improve your sleep quality. People go, oh, but what about the fat? It's a polyunsaturated fat. It's a medium chain triglyceride. Your body will either use it or lose it. It will not
So,
go on as
Coach,
body fat.
a serious question, but also kind of a joke. I usually have
Yeah.
like 3 cookies before bed.
Worst thing you could ever put in your system. Because what's happening is, and again, for the listeners, please be patient. When you eat a cookie,
I mean, like
It's-
7 p.m. is too late to have cookies.
no, the cookie is okay if you put it with whole milk that's high in fat, because the fat content's going to bring down the sugar content.
What
of
about
the
like
cookie.
almond milk? Because I
Yes.
don't do well with.
Well, what's the fat content in the almond milk? I'm not familiar with it off the top of my head.
I don't think it's nearly the same.
Because all we're working with
But
is
it's got
concentrations.
protein.
It's got protein and fat, and that will bring down the sugar content of the cookie. So I don't want it to be complicated, right? What we're trying to do, if you guys are mixing 2-stroke oil, too much oil, foul a plug, not enough oil, grenade the motor. So you want to look at, if you're eating something like a cookie that's got a lot of sugar in it, and you eat that with something that's got a lot of fat and protein, you're going to bring down the concentration of the sugar. You're going to have less of an insulin spike from the pancreas. It's a very good question, because now you get into feel good. When I was working with Ryan Dungey, they did the CBS special, and everybody labeled me as the coach that advocates ice cream, totally taking it out of context. I always have my athletes eat high quality ice cream. Like a Haagen-Dazs ice cream bar is easy, right? What is Haagen-Dazs made out of? Look at the ingredients. It's predominantly whole milk, raw sugar, milk chocolate, or dark chocolate preferably. Now, again, before somebody tries to ostracize me in the comments, I'm not saying that ice cream is a healthy food. It's a feel-good food. And Johnny, you brought this up earlier.
Well, and
If you're
I wonder why. Sorry, Coach. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's okay.
I crave. It's probably because I'm addicted to the dopamine and serotonin release of the sugars at the end of the day. It's like, I don't know. Usually you and I work out for a couple hours, and then it's everything with stress, the YouTube stuff, the real estate stuff, the being a dad stuff. And so I usually sit down and I read a book and I have a couple cookies before bed, and that's just kind of been my standard deal. All right, Coach. Interesting thing about me.
Yeah.
I'm an overthinker, so it's very difficult for me to because honestly, with all the YouTube and everything, I sleep with a notepad next to me, because usually I have aha moments in the middle of the night, and so I'll wake up because I won't remember it if I don't write it down right then and there.
That's
so,
right.
I usually write that stuff down, and that's sometimes when I'm the most creative is when I'm sleeping because I'm solving problems. But because I'm thinking so much, like it's very difficult for me to fall asleep. So what I've found that helps me is, reading a book at night, and then number two is I usually listen to some form of an audiobook that I kind of put underneath my pillow, and I usually, as soon as I start the audiobook, I put a 15-minute timer on, and I'm almost 99% positive that I do not make it past the 15-minute mark, that I fall asleep before it turns off. And that has been a cue to...
Let's test it. So on the left side of the screen, you've got that blue heart that's opened under health stats. Click on sleep. All the way to the very far left in the black box. Keep going left, keep going left. Yep, go to right there, health stats, click on sleep. Go down 3. Yep. All right, so just so the listeners and people who are watching this on YouTube, look at the screen. See where you went to bed at 9:58 on the graph?
Yeah,
okay,
I did not read an audiobook last night.
When was the last time you did it?
Might have been the night before. And usually that's what puts me into my deep right away is
so
what I've noticed.
On Tuesday night, on Monday night, because just so the listeners know, the date that's at the top is the day that you're coming into. So this would be Monday night coming into Tuesday morning. Did you listen to an audiobook on Monday night?
I did.
Okay, so this is only validating your point, because remember, what I share with you is what we call the textbook test. The brain tends to be nosy and wants to listen to words. And I'm going to go on a completely different subject, but it'll be relevant. I have an athlete that if he eats a red apple, his face balloons up. He has an allergic reaction to red apples. But if I were to say to you, an apple's not healthy, you'd go, that's not true. If I Google it, if I textbook it, an apple's healthy. Well, not for him. Well, if you look at traditional sleep studies, they will say that you need to have what we refer to as white noise, no audible words. You say, but Rob, for me, if I go to bed with it, all right, let's validate it. Here it is. Put your mouse on 10 o'clock. And I want everybody to pay attention to the screen because it's time stamping, okay? So you lay down at 10 o'clock. Now notice the little bot. You see, how long did it take for you to get to deep sleep? 10:02. So Johnny, this immediately
I don't remember anything about the book. Like I keep having to go back and over again, but it relaxes me.
But this is why I'm glad you said something though, is because I always want you to get the concept. Now take the concept and run your data through it. That's exactly what we're doing here. I love this. This is awesome. So if you went to bed at 10 o'clock and within 2 minutes you were in deep sleep, then by all means you should be putting that under your pillow every night because you validated that it works. Now just for fun, go to the top right-hand corner and go back a day. So we're looking at, go to the other right. There you go. Top right-hand corner, keep going, top right. Where it's, go back one day. Did you sleep with an audiobook Sunday night going into Monday?
I believe I did on this one as well, too.
Okay. So you went to bed at 10:13 and slide it over to where it goes into the first dark box. And so literally within 7 to 8 minutes, you were in deep sleep.
Yeah, I didn't make it past the deal. But then last night, my wife and we got stuck watching a show, and I didn't. Was this Wednesday?
Yep.
I didn't.
Yeah, that's coming into this morning.
I didn't watch one, and but it's telling me.
It's not bad though. It's still only 20 minutes. You went to bed at 9:58. You got to the dark blue at 10:20. I think it's there, 10:08.
Yeah.
No, go back. I'm sorry. Go back to the first blue box. You laid down at 9:58. What time was it when you got into dark blue? And pay attention to the screen. So literally 10 minutes is all it took you from 9:58 to 10:08 to get into deep sleep. Now, look at for the people that are watching this on YouTube, look at the dead center of the screen. Total sleep was only 5 hours and 48. Your goal is to get 8. And what'd you get up and do this morning? Time trial.
Yeah.
So I want the listeners to look at the far right. He got up at 4:25 in the morning. See, that's why I tease you, Johnny, that this watch is a little bit too much Big Brother, because I know when you went to bed, when you woke up, every place that's pink is when you tossed and turned. scroll down just a couple inches. Scroll the whole screen down. All right, click on that awake restlessness box, the horizontal box. Every one of those hash marks is how many times you rolled over per hour. So if you look at like 3 o'clock in the morning, see where you have 2 stacked on top of each other? Nope, go over 3. Keep going left. Your other left. There you go. Go to the center. See how you got 2 stacked? Go to the other right. Keep going to the right. See where they're double stacked? Next one over.
Oh, okay.
All right, that's where you toss and turn the most. See where it says, it even gives you a number, 2 restless moments. Pretty crazy, isn't it?
That is crazy.
The watch literally knows when. So for example, go to the right where it's dark blue, you're in REM 3. See how there's no movement?
Mm-hmm.
Go to the left, go to the dark blue. See no movement? And ironically, if you go to the next blue to the left, no movement. And then you go to the next one, there's 2 movements. It might be you getting your pillow comfortable or whatever. But for the most part, you will never see movement in dark blue. Why? Because you're in the deepest level of sleep. You're dead to the world. Now, what's so powerful is and for those of you that have stuck with us so far, thank you. And again, if you have questions, you guys can always reach out to me. But think about this, Johnny. We talked about REM 3 is where your body releases HGH and testosterone. We've talked about what you need to do to get to that deep sleep. Room has got to be cold. It's got to be dark. It has to be void of words. You have to go to bed sexually satisfied. You have to satisfy hunger. You put those together and you look at your sleep score and go, this is working. Well, then do it again tomorrow and the day after that, and the day after that. And then you wake up and your sleep score is not very good. Ask yourself why.